Wow, what a welcome. Why didn't I get that yesterday? That was so enthusiastic. Thank you. I feel more energized already. Welcome back. Someone just said we really are gluttons for punishment. I hope it doesn't feel like punishment. Hopefully it's fun on a Sunday. So, we're going to play some thinking music, and then I would like you, whilst we're playing thinking music, to flick back through all your notes from yesterday, and I'd like you to write down your 3 top learnings from the day. Why are we doing this? Real question. Why are we doing this? Why am I asking you to look back through and write down your 3 best learnings? Can we have a mic, please, Anita? Lisa wants to speak. It's okay.
We've all moved around.
In pink. Lisa in pink. 2 Lisas.
Sorry, I was kind of saying that to myself, but it was a bit loud and unexpected. To get some actions.
Yes, so you're extracting the action points that you want to, I can't think of a better word.
Take forward.
Take action, take forward, yeah, I wanted to use the word without saying action, absolutely. Yes, go ahead, John.
To cement it, because if you write it down, it goes in a lot better than if you just think it.
Absolutely. So you learn in 3 different ways. And while you're going through your notes, let me share this with you. It's another educational concept. So we all communicate in 3 different ways, but we also learn in 3 different ways. So when you listen to me presenting, you are learning, you're using your auditory sense, you're listening to me. Some of you will prefer auditory communication to other modes of communication. It doesn't really matter what you prefer. What really matters is what the person you're communicating with prefers. And I'm going to come back to that in just a second. So some of you will love the fact that I'm talking. Some of you, I'm a very auditory learner. Some of you will take this recording and you won't watch it back. You'll listen to it. I'll often take the audio of videos and just listen to them. I'll learn just as well. Anyone want to tell me the other 2? So visual. So you'll notice I'm differentiating between PowerPoint, flip chart, me up here, me down there, other people on the stage, me at the back. I'm deliberately changing getting a slight echo there, Adam, thank you. I'm deliberately changing your visual stimulation. That's partly why we're moving you around as well, because it keeps it fresh, keeps you learning from different perspectives on the room. It's very, very valuable. And the thing is, if we'd let you choose your own seats yesterday, and then we hadn't put name badges today, almost without exception, you all would have sat in the same seats today. We're creatures of habit. And when we recognize that, Adam, can I have slightly more volume, please? Thank you. When we recognize that, we can use those habits to our benefit. So we can mix them up to give our brain new stimulation, a bit like setting our RAS. But also we can make sure they're helpful habits. That's not a helpful habit. I have a rule in my own head that every time I walk into a room, if I've sat in that room before, I sit in a different seat. And it winds people up. Without any name badges, if before the break I was sat here, and then after the break I sit here, the person that was sat here comes and stands there as if you're in my seat, mate. It's really funny, really, really funny. But that's a deliberate habit. I've formed that habit. So, visual, auditory. Hey, get you guys. If only I could spell it. Does anyone actually know how to spell it? Kinesthetic. I'm not sure that's correct, but it means touching and feeling. Really important. So, for example, you'll notice that I'm giving you handouts. I'm asking you to write notes. These are kinesthetic things. You'll notice that some of you I'm being quite physical with. Some of you I'm giving hugs to, shaking hands, put my hand on your shoulder. That's deliberate. That's because I'm sensing, I'm reading you. I'm a student of people. I'm reading you and I'm sensing that that's how you want me to communicate with you. And by the way, if I've got that wrong, and I've given someone a hug or I've shook your hand or put my hand on your shoulder and it didn't quite feel great, please let me know because I've misjudged that. Seriously, because I'm trying to learn, right? And if one of you's thought, oh, Frank, you're so affectionate, I love that, we've got a real connection, give me that feedback as well because that means I've got it right. And what I'm doing here, by the way, is just to finish off on here, kinesthetic is you looking back through your notes, writing them again. If you wrote them yesterday, think about this for a second, right? You've listened to me teach you something, you've watched me write or looked at the screen, visual, auditory, listening to me, visual, looked at it, then kinesthetic, you've written it, now you're going back through kinesthetic, you're looking at it again, and then you're writing it again. Do you see what we're doing? It's deliberate. We're ramping up that 10% as high as we can to what you can learn. And then if you choose to share with the room by standing up, that's like a double whammy because you're saying it and you're hearing it. You've got all that emotion because you're proclaiming it to the room. Make sense? So there's 2 rules, okay? When we are growing up, our parents say to us quite a lot, normally when we've done something naughty, they'll say to us, you've just taken those sweets off your brother. How would you feel if he did that to you? Or, you're not saying please and thank you. You need to say please and thank you. How would you feel if someone just took from you, etc., right? The golden rule is treat others how you would like to be treated. Hands up really high if you've heard that before. All of us, right? Apart from Lisa. Have you heard it before, Lisa? Lisa number 2. This is going to be so hard, right? Oh my goodness, I was doing really good on names, really well on names, and now I've got to learn surnames. Right, Lisa in pink, what's your surname? Hawkins. Lisa in grey. Oh, it's H. Lisa H and Lisa, right. Lisa Pink and Lisa Grey, is that all right for today? Great, thank you. Right. So, Lisa Grey, why are you ignoring me? Everyone put their hand up. Have you heard? You did put your hand up. Thank you, I missed it. Thank you so much. So the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated. That's not the best rule. Why? Because we're all different. So the platinum rule is what? Treat people how they want to be treated. Thank you for contributing. None of that's wrong. Treat people how they want to be treated. So, yesterday, I was full of beans, really fast, really passionate. If I had been in I'm much more considered today, deliberately. I was much more energetic yesterday. I was really fast-paced. If we were in a one-on-one situation, and let me pick someone who. Well, you tell. No, I'm gonna pick someone. Fiona. If you and I were in a meeting yesterday, right, and we'd spent a couple hours together, and I had spoken at the pace and with the passion and the volume that I did for the majority of yesterday, how would you have felt?
Slightly overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think it's more than slightly. I think you're being nice. I think you're being kind, right? Did anyone notice when Fiona first came up and I was doing that little bit of coaching, I actually put my hand on her shoulder. I actually dropped my voice. I slowed down. And by the way, none of this is better or worse. If you're a visual, a kinesthetic, an auditory learner, if you're fast-paced, passionate, extrovert, considered, introvert, none of this is better or worse. It just is. But here's the thing. If I didn't understand people, I would have gone, go on then, Fiona, jump up on stage. Come on, you can do it. Yeah, yeah. She would have felt really uncomfortable. In fact, it might have been too much for her. This isn't about Fiona. I'm just choosing someone who is in contrast to me. Because I treated her, that would have been me treating her how I would have wanted to be treated. For me, if I'm sat in the audience and someone, can you be me for a moment, Sat? Thank you. Do you mind me calling you Sat? Yes, that's fine. Thank you so much. So if I'm sat in the audience, someone says, Frank, I've got a challenge for you. I'm like, love a challenge. Brilliant. What is it? Yes, I'll do it before I even know what it is. I'm up for it. Because I'm competitive. I'm a go-getter. I'm challenge and goal-orientated. If I said that to you, Fiona, you'd be like, what's the challenge? Can we talk about it not in front of the whole room? can we just check that I'm up for the challenge? You see, and have I got the measure of you? To an extent.
To an extent.
Absolutely, and we've only spent half an hour of time together. And so this, thank you for participating, Fiona, I appreciate that. So for this, what I'm talking about now, the platinum rule, we're going to apply that for the rest of today. And you're actually going to apply it for the rest of your lives, hopefully. And you're going to apply it for the rest of your property investing career. Because when you meet with a vendor, it's not about you. It's not about the property. It's all about them. And yes, they're buying the solution from you. They're paying very good money for the solution. Tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of pounds they're paying you in equity generally to solve their property problem. But they cannot buy the solution unless they trust you. And they won't think to themselves, well, Frank's speaking slightly too quickly for me, or Frank's slightly too loud, or Frank's being slightly too dominant right now. They won't think that consciously. They'll just feel unease. They just won't quite feel right. I don't feel like I gel with Frank. Not so sure. I think that guy that came into my house half an hour early, I think I might sell to him. Just get a better sense of him. That's all it'll be. And they'll go with them instead of you. Or they'll go with an auction house, or they'll go with the estate agent. And you won't get the feedback unless you do something called this. After every single sales interaction, I do this, and I would encourage you to adopt this strategy. I'll put it on the test. It's that important. It's kind of an educational concept. LB stands for liked best. So after you've done something, so after this event, we will give you a questionnaire to ask you what you enjoyed, what could have been better, what your big takeaways were. But I will also sit down with the team. In fact, I've written down, we have a little WhatsApp group, an LBNT WhatsApp group. This is how seriously I take my personal development. So this morning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 like best and next times I've written before we've started this morning, based on things I think we did well. And what this is about is if we went back to the start of the interaction. So this morning, Sally's going to love this. We're going to play one of Sally's early telephone fact find calls. An actual call that she did with a vendor. She loves it. And we could play her 34th one, which is a lot better than her early ones, but we're not. We're going to play the 4th one she ever did. So we're going to play her 4th call. And what we are going to do is we're going to do a like best list, and you're going to actually write it as we listen to it in real time. And what that is if Sally could go back and redo that call, or if I could go back and redo yesterday's presentation, what would I do exactly the same? What did Sally absolutely nail? They go down the like best column. If I could go back, what would I do the same? And then, if I could go back and redo yesterday, or if Sally could go back and redo that call, what would we do differently next time? And there's only one rule to this. There has to be twice as many like best as next time. Why? We're focusing on the positives. We're building ourselves up. We don't want to make ourselves feel bad. Do you know the funny thing? When I do this with new people, they miss this one out. They're like, well, I need to do this and this and this better next time. People instinctively go to the negatives. It's hilarious. It's like, hang on a second. Did you not pick up the phone? Did you say hello at the start of it? Yeah, I did. Well, let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate you're doing your 4th call. Let's celebrate the fact that you guys all came back today. It couldn't have been that bad yesterday. So let's have that on a like best. You know, you invited them back in the morning. Or are you going to tell me you're leaving now, Darren?
Or in a mood of celebration. I want to celebrate Sally because Sally told me that she managed to drive here today without needing to take a detour.
Because was it yourself that struggled with that yesterday, Darren, or was it John that struggled with
I
it?
singularly failed to arrive on time yesterday. And I never arrive not on time.
I hadn't noticed. Congratulations. You drove him here this morning. Excellent. That's one way of solving the problem, Darren. So, like best and next time is really, really important in every sales interaction. And when you are meeting with vendors, whether they are telephone fact finds, whether they are help visits, I would encourage you to do like best next times. And what you'll notice is if you do them regularly, and I do them, as I said, I do them several times a week, depending on what my meetings have been, etc. You start to see patterns, and you start to get better and better. And you go, right, I'm nailing that every time. I don't have to put that like best on now, but, oh, that's interesting. That's a tricky one. Like, for example, in January, we didn't put the sheets up around the wall. This is the 3rd time we've done this event. Have you noticed how often I'm pointing to the sheets? In January, I kept getting up here and turning, oh, hang on, it's here somewhere. And so as a team, when we sat down, we were like, how can we do that? Did you notice we changed pointer? It was red, and then it's green. It's because the red one can't reach that far, but the green one goes right around the room. And you think, well, what difference does that make? Well, it makes a really big difference when tomorrow we're pointing at the back of the room and no one can see which one I'm pointing at. They're small things. But if you capture them, we have a meeting this week. What day is the Like Best Next Time's meeting? Tuesday. Tuesday, there's a meeting to critique these 3 days. All of it will go on a spreadsheet so that next time we run an event, it all gets captured. It's important. And then you get better. And if you do that, Maddie's going to be here tomorrow, we do this after all of our help visits. When we go meet with a vendor, we go, right, like best. And we'll just be driving home in the car and one of us will talk and one of us will write it down. Do you know, Frank, you said that? Oh, I did. Did you notice that landlord's facial expression? No, it really upset him. Ah, that's useful, thanks. Because there's only one set of eyes, right? But when there's 2 or 3 of you, you notice it. Capture that. We're always learning. One of my favourite sayings is every day's a school day. So, thinking music, flick through your notes, top 3 learnings from yesterday, and then you have the opportunity to share. I'll give you 100 seconds. Go. Okie dokie. By the way, for the rest of today, Aled cannot be referred to as Aled. You can call him Ben, Fred, Dave. called me Paul this morning. I've just spent... Now, for those of us that know Paul Preston, and I know Paul Preston quite well, do I look like Paul? Do I sound like Paul? Do I teach like Paul? We're pretty different in a lot of ways. Fred, you're okay, mate. It's all right. I haven't taken it to heart. 3 pints last night. Where's Michelle? Michelle, it's not going to be about you today. It's all about Ben. Right. Who would like to share? Amazing. Let's have 3 at each side of the room. Got some mics. Come on up. Especially if you haven't shared already, if you haven't spoken on the mic yet. All right, let's start with David.
Thanks, Bob.
David, yeah?
It's going to be confusing, it's a people's business in solving problems. Let them know they exist.
Whoa, sorry, let me just pause. 3 on each side, please. So we're missing 4. Oh, we've got 1. Yep. 1 more this side, 2 more this side. Thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you, Sat. Who have we got? 1 more this side. Yeah, go ahead, KB. Thanks, John. Right, far away.
It's the people's business in solving their problems. So let them know they exist, find out their problems, then solve it.
James.
Giving people your best offer and not negotiating, going in that way first.
Absolutely. If you don't like sales, what a great thing to commit to. Love it.
Have a carrot and a stick.
Yeah.
I've always been trying to just work to the carrot, and I need a stick rammed firmly up.
Way too much information. Sat.
Again, Black Swan events, but to realise what my Black Swan events are, I need to know what my current status is and my current financial position. So budgeting, I think that's massive.
Thank you. KB.
The progress log for me was the best. Where do I see myself in 10 years? How do I divide that into a week? And I like you being a cricketer myself, your run rate system. So how the run rate goes into. Thank you.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. Ibrahim.
Focusing on happiness and be risk averse.
I missed the last sentence. Focusing on happiness.
And be risk averse. Take insurance to prevent yourself.
Oh, being risk averse. Love it. Give everyone a round of applause. Well done, guys. Thank you. So we talked yesterday about happiness, and we're going to get into some nitty-gritty. It's a lot more knowledge-based today, a lot more focused on the detail of the vendor relationship and how to find vendors, how to talk to them, how to find out their problems, how to solve their problems and do the deals. That's what we're covering today, a lot of detail on that. So you're going to walk away with solid, actionable steps to take. The one thing we didn't cover yesterday, which we need to cover first, though, is happiness. What 2 things did I say we use money for that makes us happy? Write them down, please. Don't shout them out. Write them down, please. Shazia, can you give me one of them, please? Thank you.
I've wrote health down.
Health?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. Kieran, what have you got? Sorry.
Essentials.
Essentials like what?
Like roof over your head and food and shelter.
Absolutely. So we buy stuff with money. Absolutely. And what else? Lisa. Lisa Gray. I'm going to call you. Yeah, go ahead.
Create a legacy.
Creating a legacy for yourself. Love it. Absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else? At the front here, Mark. Sorry, Richard.
Sorry, I just thought we were going along the line.
Abby, go. Help yourself.
I have experiences.
And experiences. Thank you. So the 2 main ones I focused on yesterday were stuff and experiences. Absolutely. Health is absolutely critical. And the one I didn't talk about, which is so interesting that you've just picked up on it, Lisa, is legacy. because legacy is a purpose that's bigger than us. And it was a conversation I had with, it was Claire, you and I were chatting last night, and it really prompted it in me. So I'm just going to spend 5 minutes, and you have Claire to thank for this, because I should have really covered it yesterday morning, but didn't. So I was very fortunate in as much as very early in my working life, I got to the point where I had more money passively coming in from property than I needed to live on. And that was there's two main reasons for that. One is I'd continued to live on about 20% of my income. So you know that red number at the top from the blue number? When I was a student at university, I lived on very little. When I got a job as a teacher, I continued to live like a student, basically. So I accumulated money, which meant that with my first pay slip, I actually came out of university with more money than I went into university with. That's pretty unusual. And my parents didn't give me any money. I did the whole thing myself. I worked as a swimming teacher most nights of the week. Saturday mornings, I was working as a swimming teacher. I worked as a lifeguard. Every summer, I flew to America and worked 10 odd weeks in American summer camps. I just worked. I worked the whole time. So when I got my teaching salary, I just continued that psychology and that frugal approach. Now, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying how it was, which meant that I accumulated cash, which meant with my first ever paycheck, I bought a house. I'd already negotiated on the house. I'd agreed the price. I'd applied for the mortgage, and the mortgage broker was at the point where he said, well, I need to see a paycheck. And I said, great, I'm getting it in 10 days. He said, what, you haven't got your first paycheck? Like, I'll have last month's one. No. It was September, and I got it like on the 1st of October. And he was like, wow, okay, you're buying it with your first paycheck. Have you got enough deposit? And I was like, yeah, there's the deposit. Like, bearing in mind, it was a 95% mortgage in those days. I think you still get 95% first-time buyer mortgages now. And then once I bought that one, about 6 months later, I got my first buy-to-let, 15% deposit, 100 grand property. I'd saved 15 grand over the years, and I've just continued in that vein. So as I've built my income, I've deliberately kept, now my cost of living has gone up significantly. I've got a Tesla. I'm not big on cars, but I quite like the idea of an electric vehicle. Elon Musk brought out a deal where you get free lifetime supercharging. And I was like, oh, that's a good deal. So I have free supercharging for life on my Tesla X. The first brand new car I've ever bought. I think I don't do cars really. I'd never spent more than about 25 grand on a car. And that was 100, right? That was like crazy money for me, which kind of shows how frugal I really am. And I've committed to myself that I won't charge it. I won't charge it. I do charge it. I charge it as much as I can at superchargers all around the country. Like, I try not to charge it at home. Just it's a little game I play, a healthy game, and I join the kids in on it. But I've committed to myself that I won't change it until literally it will go no more. So I reckon I'll have it a decade. That's what I'm hoping. My point is, if I continue to live, because I continue to live on 20% of my income, roughly speaking, I became financially free very early. And it's being aware of the golden handcuffs. And some of you might have noticed, some of you might be thinking, yeah, that's me. Brilliant. It just gives you more options. You can always spend more at a later date. But if you live on less than you need, you can invest that money, and that money will make you more money, and then that money will make you more money. So you actually become wealthier and wealthier in the wealth definition as opposed to looking wealthy. I was saying to some people at dinner last night, I don't wear watches. I literally don't wear a watch. I'm so grateful, by the way, Adam, that you put the time on my pointer. That's amazing. And I don't do cars, really. Or I've got friends that have got multiple watches in 6 figures, like £100,000 on watches. I always scratched a watch. Can you imagine wearing a 100 grand watch? And, well, I can't imagine it. I'd cry, I think, on the first day. Yeah, absolutely. And I'd lose them. I remember my wife bought me a 5 grand tag watch, and I lost it. Yeah, turned up 18 months later in the loft. I'd gone in the loft and I thought, I mustn't damage my watch. So I'd put it down on a suitcase to do so. And 18 months later we found it. Oh, but I'd already done the damage. Anyway, she says I talk too much. I should have a filter, shouldn't I? So When I became financially free in my early 30s, I think it's my early 30s, I actually realized that I did about 5 or 6 years where I did exactly the same thing every year. Like I was just on autopilot. I repeated the same year. And fortunately, and I don't know how it came about, I should probably do some more reflection on it, but I managed to catch myself. But I was on a slippery slope downwards in terms of mental health, really becoming more and more depressed. I had children, so I was telling myself I was doing this for my family. I was spending lots of time with them. I was working probably 3 days a week, but didn't need to. And I realized now, looking back, I was directionless. I was purposeless. I had clients and I cared about my clients. I had a family, I cared about my family. But there was something missing. There's a fire in my belly that needed to be there that wasn't there. And it was around that time that I set up the Stepping Stones housing project. And some of you might know that, some of you might not know that. As of today, we've housed I was telling some guys this at dinner and I realized that I hadn't shared it with the room. As of today, we've had someone sleep in one of our beds, in one of our Stepping Stones houses, rather than on the street or sofa surfing, on 350,000 occasions. 350,000. Thank you. Make sure you give Maddie a round of applause for that tomorrow, because she, I think, is 75, 80 people now every night are in some of her houses. She's like 80 people that she's avoided being on the streets rather than but just because she set up Stepping Stones houses. So do thank her. She runs it in Northampton largely, and has mentored people around the country to run the project. And what I was saying last night that I want to share with you is I've never had that low feeling. And I think we're emotional beings, right? Sometimes we feel amazing and sometimes we feel low. And I think that's a natural oscillation that we go through. But I think it's those real depths that we have to be wary of, or that continual low that isn't improving. And sometimes it can just be a numbness. Sometimes it can be a bit of a sadness. Ironically, the better we do, the wealthier we are, the more comfortable we are, the harder it can become to be happy. And it's the same principle as suicides going up on Christmas Day. Why would more people kill themselves around Christmas? It's a happy time of year, right? Well, because we're expected to be happier, it makes us sadder if we're not happy. Because most people are striving to make ends meet, if we're affluent and comfortable and not striving, we should be happy. And so what I want to do now in this short period we have together this morning is I want you to think to yourself what it is that's going to be your legacy. What is it that's going to outlive you and continue to grow? What are you going to do in your lifetime, however many decades you've got left, that's bigger than you and your family? Because without that, I think it's hard to be happy. And we talked about happiness yesterday, stuff and experiences. Yeah, that's kind of level one. But I promise you, if I feel bad, and we all have days like that, I have days where I think, oh, I don't want to get up this morning. Not regularly, maybe once a year, twice a year. I'm like, oh. It is so much easier to get out of bed when I think of all those homeless people. When I think like, oh, I feel stressed, why am I working this hard? I work hard. I still work 50, 60 hours a week. The vast majority of the time I love it. But when I don't love it, that's what makes me feel great. That's what goes, yeah, but Frank, think of all those people you've helped. And I've got other projects I'm going to do, other legacies I'm going to start that get me excited. But for me, my legacy is we are ending homelessness globally. That's where I'm headed. That is what my legacy will be. Now, it's pretty unlikely it'll be in this lifetime. But if I can set that snowball rolling down the mountain, and we're doing pretty well. I actually think we could have done a lot better. But I've set that snowball in motion, and if that continues to roll beyond me, then that's amazing. And I think, I don't know, but I think when I'm 80 and 90 and 100 and 110 and 120, I told someone last night, I told my kids I'm living till 134. So when I'm sat there, 134 in my rocking chair, I think I'm going to feel pretty good about my life. There's a really good book, if you really want to get into this, called The 5 Regrets. Can you guys look this up for me? I can't remember the author. The 5 Regrets. No, you're thinking of, I'll come back to that one. Man's Search for Meaning, that is. Viktor Frankl, I think that is. No, my book references The 5 Regrets of the Dying. It's got flowers, sunflowers on the front, and it begins with B. It's a woman. Sorry? That's it. What's Bronnie? Bronnie Ware, that's it. Thank you. I knew it was a B. Bronnie Ware, W-A-R-E, I think it is. The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And she has worked in palliative care, and she goes into... Now, interestingly, the people that can afford for someone to come and live with them for 6 months and basically see out their dying days are pretty wealthy. Not many people pay for that service, and she did that for years, I think. And it's very interesting. She's very down to earth. I can really recommend the book. I think it's self-published, but it's an international bestseller. And she says no one ever lies on their deathbed saying, I wish I'd worked a bit harder. It's all about relationships. It's all about the difference they made. It's all about the time they spent or didn't spend. It's all about the experiences. It really, really brings you down to earth. And so what I'd like you to do, we'll play some thinking music. Hopefully it'll be less like the techno we had earlier, but who knows. And let's jot down today, if your life depended on it in the next 2 minutes, writing a legacy, and then you had to stick to that legacy for the rest of your life, but you don't live beyond 2 minutes unless you write one down, what would it be? No, now that face, Claire, is because you want to take your time to do it, right? But the danger is, Claire was like, ooh. But the thing is, unless you commit to one, you can always change it. You know those 10-year goals? Oh, they're on. I love it. I love this. 10-year goals are, oh no. Look at his face. No, it's the 10-year one. I want the blue line. Oh, yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. So, it took me so long to find that, I've forgotten what I was going to say. Thank you so much. Oh, you guys are good. You're inside my brain now, right? So, if you... Where's my mate? If you're here... Where's Vincent? Is he here? He's not here. Oh, no. When I said everyone was here, not Vincent, Victor, he's not here. Oh, bless. Maybe I did upset him too much. If you're in Liverpool and you decide, do you know what, I don't like this. I want to be somewhere else. I'm going to go to, let's pick JFK. I want to go to New York. And you buy a rowing boat. And you get a map of the Atlantic Ocean, and you go buy some supplies, and you maybe do some training in the gym for rowing, and you get in your rowing boat and you start rowing towards New York. The chances, and this is the same, Claire, as picking a legacy, right? The chances of you rowing for a few weeks and then going, I don't want to go to New York. Just read about New York. I had it all wrong. The likelihood is you're going to go, I really like the idea of Vancouver, or actually it's Washington, D.C., or to be fair, it's Mexico. The likelihood is it's still going to be westward, right? You're going to have the approximate journey, right? It's highly unlikely that you row for a month and then go, I wanted to go to China, and turn 180 and go the other way. It's pretty unlikely, right? It's pretty unlikely that you write down that you want to deliver water to every single child in Africa, right? That might be your legacy. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but that might be your legacy. It's pretty unlikely that you're then going to go, no, it's not that. It's white supremacy and the far right in the States. I want to go, build up the Ku Klux Klan. Like they're pretty different, those two, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? It might not be water in Africa. It might be schools in Asia, but it's the same directions. That makes sense. You can change it later. But here's what I want you to do. In the next 2 minutes, I want you to commit to a life purpose that is going to be bigger than you after you die. And as soon as you have that, it opens up your RAS. It opens up that charitable, that legacy part of the goal to let the balls come through. And what you'll realize is it will become huge for you. It will become a fire in your belly. And then it becomes so easy to go buy a 100 grand house. It becomes so easy for you to buy a 1.2 million pound property in London. Now that's easy. Compared to giving water to however many hundreds of million kids in Africa, buying a few houses and, I'm nervous about meeting a vendor. Yeah, but hang on, if I meet this vendor, and by the way, Christians tithe 10% of their income to their churches. I'm not as familiar with other religions, but you can just decide that 1% of your turnover goes to that pot and put it in a bank account. Now, when you knock on the front door, and we will do this as a role play later, when you knock on the front door, it's like, this is going to feed X number of people. This is going to house this many people. If I do this deal, if I solve this vendor's problem, that earns me 100 grand, which means I'm giving 10 grand to my legacy, which means I'm doing, do you see it's bigger now? It's not, this will buy me a new watch. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what motivates you. But I promise you, if you also have something bigger than you, it becomes way easier. When you're lying in bed and you're feeling a bit sorry for yourself, when you're shattered, I'm shattered after these 3 days. Tuesday morning, I will be tired, I promise you, right? Did 11 hours yesterday, something similar today. Tried to stay up for the fight last night. Anyone watch the fight? Was it worth staying up for? Thanks. I could have turned up at 10 this morning and watched the fight. It becomes so much easier. I went to Aston Villa, Liverpool, Monday night. Anyone football fans? Big game for Aston Villa. Got them into the Champions League for next year. My son supports Liverpool. It's the first Premier League football match he's ever been to. I actually went with Nick James, those of you that saw Nick James up on there. He's got hospitality tickets to Aston Villa the whole season. And we were in a charity auction at Christmas. And I think I paid 2 grand for the tickets. And for me to go and watch a football match with my mate, but also I could take my son to see his first ever Liverpool game. And we sat there and it was a 7-course taster menu. My son's 10. He's never had fine dining. He's like, 7 courses? I won't be able to eat that, Dad. And I'm like, mate, it's not like fish and chips times 7. He thought he was going to have all this food. He loved it, silver service and all that. It was really nice for him. He's never had fine dining. And we sat there and it's unlimited drinks for the whole night. It's a wine pairing, My son didn't have the wine pairing, by the way, but Nick and I partook, if that's the right word. And at the end of the night, I said, Nick, that was amazing. He said, well, thank you. You paid 2 grand for this. And then he said, do you know how many families that fed? Because he does Tony Robbins' Basket Brigade. That's his legacy. And by the way, you can piggyback on someone else's hard work. If you respect someone and you like a charity, you can just commit to that. There's a lot of leverage in that because someone's ploughed the furrow ahead of you. And I forget the figure because it's not my legacy. But he said it's 30, I can actually remember, it was 65 or so families that we fed. So can someone do that for me? Can you divide I need someone to be my calculator for today. It can't be Bob, so who's it going to be? Thank you so much, Shannon. 2 grand divided by 65. It was something like 65. Yeah, I thought it was 30 quid. It's 30 quid a family to feed them at Christmas. And so he said, we've fed 65 families tonight. I was like, wow. And at Christmas, I go with my kids and my other half, and we fill the car with all these bags of shopping, and we take it to families around Birmingham and give it to them at Christmas. It's like on the 23rd of December. And so that's Nick's legacy, and I think he feeds hundreds of families around Birmingham now every year, and that's what he's about. And that's because as a kid, his mum worked for Tony Robbins, and so he went around the world with his mum, sitting in the back, listening to Tony Robbins talking about feeding families. So you can understand why he's got that as his passion, and he respects Tony, so he supports his charity. But my point is, it doesn't matter what it is that your legacy is, but having that will drive you to greater success and will make you happier. And that's what we said we're here for. Agreed? Cool. A couple of minutes. What's your legacy going to be? Put some emotion into it. Put loads of wording. I'll come to you in a moment, mate. Put loads of wording into it, loads of emotion. DJ Adams back in the house. I'm going to not invite you to share now, but I am going to give you the opportunity to refine those over the rest of today, and you're welcome to share at any point during the rest of the course if you would like to. Okay, so at any point you can ask for the mic and you can share that. You can stand up, because I promise you, by standing up and declaring what your legacy is going to be to the room, that will make it so much more powerful. That will leverage your unconscious mind. That will leverage your emotions. Great stuff. Okay. You have a sheet on your table, but I want it to stay face down for now. Oh, Michelle, it's always one. If it's not Bob, it's Michelle. So, let's talk about sophisticated properties. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. My definition of a sophisticated property purchase is that a purchase where we own the property without ever putting any of our own money into it. It's not a strict definition, but I quite like it. And of course, that conflicts with what most people say. Money doesn't grow on trees. You can't buy a house without spending a penny. I know that's not what they say. I made that second one up. But interestingly, that's what Shazia basically said yesterday. Did you notice what she said? Do you remember what you said, Shazia? I said, I think you should pay 1.2 million for it, not 937. And you said, I don't have the money. But look, a purchase where we own the property without ever putting any of our own money into it. That's what I aim for in every single transaction. And by the way, if you aim for that and you end up putting 1% of the property's value in, or if you remember that one there, how much were we putting in as a deposit on that one there, slide 7? It was £1,000 deposit. Of course, there were purchase costs, and it's a £60,000 property, right? So actually, we're putting in under 2%. Would we do that every day? If we did that today, would we do it tomorrow and the next day? Absolutely we would. So, but I break my own rule. Absolutely, I break this rule. But that's what we're aiming for. And if we're aiming for that, we're certainly never going to do a deal where we put 30% in ever again. So if we're not paying for it, who is? Well, it's either the vendor's money. Talked about that a bit yesterday. You're right there, Sonia. Can you see? If I stand in front of you, just let me know. Or it's investors' money. We talked about that. Or it can be bridging finance. Or it can be term finance. Or it can be the tenant's money. Do you remember how we worked out for Shazia that 1.2 million pound property she was actually only paying 750 grand for in the future? Did we write the numbers on there for you, Shazia? Did we put them on the board? So, here we go. So hang on a second. If Shazia pays 1.2 million, how come she only has to pay 750 in 15 years' time? That's 450 grand less. But the tenant pays. Sorry, laughing at my own joke. The tenant pays 2.5 grand a month for 180 months, 15 years, which is 450k. So when you say the tenant pays for the property, they absolutely can. I've done deals where the tenant pays for all. In fact, I'm sharing one with you. The hotel, 18-bed hotel, where we've added 10 rooms to it, the tenants, the guests, are paying for the entire hotel. I'm paying 450 grand for the hotel. It's only worth 350. Have I shared this one with you already? Don't think so. It's worth 350. I'm paying 450 for it. But the tenants are paying me 600 and something grand over 15 years. So they're paying for the entire hotel. And so the money just needs to come from somewhere other than our pocket. Make sense? Brilliant. Any questions? You want to draw this. You want to sketch this. This is the biggest reason that you will fail to do a sophisticated deal. KB.
In my ignorance, I don't know what is term finance in your previous slide. After bridging finance, you have written term finance.
Term finance, sorry. Term finance is a generic phrase. Thank you for asking the question. I'm sure others were struggling with it as well. Term finance is a generic phrase for finance that lasts a long time. So a 15-year, 20, 25-year mortgage, you call that term. So you have short-term finance, usually investor money I'll generally take for a year, 2 years, 3 years. That's not term finance. Bridging finance I'll take for 12, 15 months. That's not term finance. If I get a buy-to-let mortgage, it might be a 2-year fixed rate, 5-year fixed rate, but it's a term product. It's 20 years, 25 years. Does that make sense? So my short-term finance, I'll pay anywhere between 5 and 15% quite happily, depending on the deal. Term finance, I'll very rarely go above 6.5% because it's over such a long period. Thank you. So this diagram is really important. This is the main reason you'll fail to do a sophisticated deal, is because you haven't followed this diagram. You haven't appreciated this diagram. Only motivated vendors want a sophisticated solution. Only motivated vendors need a sophisticated solution. The biggest reason that a vendor will say no to a sophisticated, by the way, a vendor is a seller, right? Seller of any kind of property, commercial, residential, land, industrial, doesn't matter. Any of it I'll buy if the vendor's motivated. That says there traditional. It actually says traditional. I know you can't see it very well, but that red bit is traditional, right? That's the traditional vendor. That's the traditional market. On the screen, on my laptop, you can read it. On here, because of the definition, you can't. So, if a vendor wants MV, what's MV stand for? Shout it out. Market value. If the vendor wants market value in 6 to 9 months, that's typically how long it takes to get market value for a property. You put it on the market, you have some viewings, you have someone make an offer, then they have to go get finance, maybe it falls through, then you have to find someone else, then they get a mortgage, then they buy it from you. Typically 6 to 9 months is about the average. Could take 12 months, could take 3 months, highly unlikely to take 3 months in the current market. If that's what they want, they will never say yes. Please write this down. If they want market value in 6 to 9 months, they will never say yes to your sophisticated solution because they don't have a property problem that requires a sophisticated solution. And I'm really laboring the point because there is nothing more demoralizing for you as a new sophisticated investor than to go and to speak to vendors and to do a brilliant job of communicating with them. and building rapport and trust. And then you present your sophisticated solution and they go, absolutely not. You are having a laugh, aren't you? 25% off. 30% off. So hang on a second. You want me to give you the keys and you make all the money off my property for 15 years and then you're going to pay me today's value? You shouldn't have even come. How do you sleep at night? No one in their right mind would say that. You only need one person to say that to you. And you're like, I knew it wouldn't work. That guy Frank, he was lying. What a waste of time those 3 days were. It's really demoralizing when you're at that start of your journey. The main reason, 95, 98% of the reasons that people will say no to you is because it doesn't matter if I stand in front of them or you stand in front of them, you could have the best negotiator in the world. If they want market value in 6 to 9 months, they're not for us. I will never buy their property. When a vendor sees my marketing and my marketing says, I guarantee to buy your property, I do guarantee to buy their property, but not on those terms. Otherwise, I'd just go buy the whole of Rightmove. There'd be nothing left on Rightmove. And people sometimes say, well, I expected you to pay market value. Really? So you know that I delivered a leaflet to every house on your street and you think I'm going to pay market value next month for all of them? Well, of course not. Of course I'm not going to offer market value because I'm not in the traditional market. I don't want to buy 1,000 loaves of bread at £1.50. I want to buy 1,000 loaves of bread at 28p. So, if they are in the red, if they want a traditional solution, we need to move on. When we are communicating with vendors, we want to get to the no as quickly as possible. It's a positive outcome for them to say, thank you so much, but I'm not interested in that. No problem at all. Our business model doesn't change. If anything changes for you, this is the script. It's in there. You're going to get it. It's written down. You will get this morning. No problem at all. Darren, thank you for your time. I wish you all the best in selling your property. If anything does change for you, do feel free to get back in touch with me. Feel free to save me on your phone. Our business model doesn't change, so we'll always be here if you think our solution might work for you. Because I tell you, you might not be motivated today, but who knows what might change in the future. 24 months on a stagnant market does a lot to people. So we always leave the door open, we're always very courteous, and we always respect the fact that our solution doesn't work for many people. But if they don't say no, if they're like, that's not for me, brilliant. They're probably motivated. We are not looking for yeses, we're looking for an absence of a no. I have never had someone say, oh, fantastic, 30% off market value, when can you get round here? Oh, amazing. You're going to take the keys today and pay me in a decade. Brilliant. Come right round, Frank. It's never going to be that because a successful negotiation is where there's a little bit of pain for the other party. Anything along the lines of, whew, I knew it'd be a discount, 25%, maybe. Cha-ching, brilliant. Okay, Darren, you're going to be my vendor for today. You all right with that? Thank you. Brilliant, Darren. Well, it sounds like we're in the right ballpark. So the next step is for me to pop out. This is all scripted. This is word for word, the script. Next step is for you to pop out, meet yourself, value your property accurately, and I'll make you a firm offer in writing. I can pop out. Today's Sunday. I'd never make a call on the Sunday, but let's just assume I did. Today's Sunday. How's Friday afternoon for you? I could be there at 2. Does that work for you? Or I could come Monday morning. Which of those works best for you? Notice I'm not bringing no into play. Is it Friday afternoon? Is it Monday morning? Because he's not said no. We make such unusual offers that they need processing time. They need to think, right, what does that mean? 30% below. Whew, okay. it's £1 million, that's 700 grand. Can I make 700 grand? A bit like your vendor, Shazia, you know, how am I going to pay capital gains? If they know they want to buy a £1.15 million house and their property's worth 1.2, you go offer them 970, they're just going to say no. So the absence of a definite no is a, great, well, let's take some time and explore it. Because what they're saying is they are sophisticated. They are in need of a sophisticated solution. And that is the rest of the solution. The solution of a traditional vendor is actually very narrow. These guys are just negotiating on price. They're saying, well, it's £1.50. Will you take £1.45? Will you take £1.40? It's all about price, nothing about the people, nothing about the solution. But here, the vendor gets to choose. The vendor only gets to choose one thing, by the way. On this side, the vendor gets to choose how quickly we buy the property. So they can choose the time frame. 4 to 6 weeks is what we can achieve at the moment with certainty. We can't guarantee it, but we are very good at getting them through in 4 to 6 weeks. By the way, if someone ever says, I need it quicker, feel free to say, yes, we can. We can definitely get it through within 7 days. With 100% certainty, everyone in this room can buy a property within 7 days. And the way you'll achieve that is you'll phone me. And you'll say, Frank, I've got this deal. I need to buy it within 7 days. I'll say, fantastic. We'll pay 50% of what it's worth. And if they really need it in 7 days, they'll say, yes, I paid 50%. I've had a client pay 50% of what property's worth. But most people go, oh, I thought you could pay up to 75%. Oh, we can, but that's in 4 to 6 weeks. Oh, I can wait that long then. Great. We'll do it in 4 to 6 weeks. And very rarely do people need, remember, want, need. Very rarely do people need it within 7 days, but it's absolutely doable. So they can pick the time frame, but if they pick the time frame, what do we pick? The price. They can have time frame or price. They can't pick both. If they want to pick both, they're a traditional investor. So we will pay up to 75%. Notice my language, up to 75%. Of what the property's worth. And we'll buy that as quickly as we possibly can. Or they can pick the price. If they want around market value, that's cool. We can pay around market value. Around is a deliberate word because we can pay above market value or we can pay market value or we can pay slightly below market value, depending on the time frame. So we can pay around market value in 5 to 15 years. Now, I'm going to spend a lot of time helping you to work out how long it is, what the price is. It's called my deal equalizer. It's an educational concept I'll share with you later. But they can pick the time frame, in which case we pick the price, or they can pick the price, market value, in which case we pick the time frame. Does that make sense? And if you have a motivated vendor, they will say yes to one or the other, so long as you follow this system. Do not, can you read the purple bit? Don't reinvent the wheel. This system works. I've spent over 15 years developing it. The number of man-hours that has gone into testing, into designing this system is unbelievable. The number of people and times that it has been followed to a successful outcome is huge. Absolutely huge. My property franchise, before I sold it in 2021, my property investment franchise had 45 franchisees doing this on a daily basis. Some of those guys were doing a property a month using this system. So it works. So please don't take something that's working and try and improve on it. My suggestion is just follow it verbatim because we know it works. And also, if you follow it perfectly and it doesn't work, I'm really good at telling you what you need to do slightly differently to make it work. Because if you follow the system, we know it's you that's not quite making it work. There's something that you're doing. if you're following the system, I can work that out really easily. I can look at Sally's conversion rates and go, right, there's something going wrong with your TFFs. Let's listen to 5 of your TFFs. It's this or this or this. Do you see how they're saying yes and then you're still saying no afterwards? That's going to get you a better conversion rate or whatever it might be. Do you see how you're sitting? I can tell if someone sat down when they're making a call or stood up. You can hear it in their voice. Do you see how your energy is really low there? If you stand up and walk around when you're on the phone with someone, they'll get the energy and they're more likely to say yes. I can pick that out. Help visits. If your conversion is low at help visit, I will be able to work out why after chatting to you. So this is what you get on the Diamond Wealth program, is you get the hand holding through this process so that you get to the conversion rates that my other clients are achieving. Some people, by the way, they get the system, they go, yeah, got that, follow it, brilliant, get the results, amazing. Some of my clients have higher conversion rates than me, especially the women. Women outperform me typically. And I could drop below the line and go, that's just because they're women. Or I can own it and get above the line and go, well, what do I need to do better to improve on my conversion rates? So, any questions about that? Yes. Control now, pay later. Control the property permanently from today, but pay for it later. I'm going to come on to that a lot later. Thank you for that, John. Great question. Did you pick up on the fact that I said 95, 98% of the reasons people will say no are the red bit, they're in the traditional bit? What's the other 2 or 5%? That 2 or 5% is your performance. It's your ability to speak effectively with the people. It's your ability to employ the platinum rule. It's your ability to follow the system. It's not rocket science. But you do have to, probably the biggest part is, trying to find it. It's on this one, that's why. Probably the biggest reason, which will completely torpedo your whole business, is that if you don't believe that you can help them, they will pick up on it, they will believe that you can't help them, and then they won't accept your solution. So that's probably the biggest one. And that's one of the things you will get from the Diamond Wealth community, is you will see people who are less experienced than you, less intelligent than you, less personable than you, less successful than you, doing these deals. And then you'll think to yourself, well, if they can do them, I can do them. And then you'll walk into people's front rooms. I've done deals in McDonald's, Starbucks, Costa front rooms. Never done one in a car. Never signed someone up in a car, but pretty much everywhere else. When you walk in and sit down with those people, when you believe that you can do it, because you've seen loads. Laura was showing someone the WhatsApp group yesterday of all the deals that people are doing, that they're sharing, that I'm critiquing in the group so everyone else can see the critiques. Should I do this? Should I offer this, Frank? Should I be offering 8 years on this or 9 years? What should I be asking the vendor next? You have me as your coach to say, right, go ask them this. What do they need? A bit like I was doing with you yesterday, Shazia, of, well, what's her capital gains tax bill going to be? Until you know how much tax she needs, we don't know how much we need to get her. Does that make sense? So those are the 2 ways that we're going to solve people's sophisticated property problems. Who's got a question? Anyone? Awesome. Yes, James.
Yeah, so have you ever met up with anyone in that situation where they've maybe been sick and they've needed the money for sort of health reasons, and you've got sort of more personally invested and offered them more than what you probably should have done? Or
So who was it yesterday that asked me a question? I was like, thank you, because we're about to cover that. Who was it? It was someone over here. Anyway, thank you, James, because if you all turn over the sheets on your table, you have the 42 reasons that people are motivated. So we've gone through every single transaction that we've done, and we've written down every single reason that the vendors sold to us. So you have the 42 reasons. Now, what I said yesterday, James, is absolutely right. I will make my best offer on day one, the first time I speak to them, and I will stick to that offer. Now, I care about all my vendors. I don't judge their motivations. I have to understand their motivation, otherwise I can't solve their problem. So if I don't know why they're motivated, then it's not going to work. But as soon as I understand their problem, I solve it in the best way I can to achieve a win-win. So have I ever paid too much? Not deliberately. Have I had properties downvalued? Yeah. By the way, when I make an offer, it's generally unconditional. I don't generally say, I'll pay 75, but only if it values at 100. If it then values at 95, I take that on the chin. I'm not in the business of, like, what, only 20 grand off? You know, I just swallow that. I just think that's the way I want to do business. But no, I wouldn't say, look, I can only pay, because on the phone, right, before you know the real reason, you say I can pay up to 75%. And then if they go, but I'm really sick, and you go, okay, I'll pay 85% then. Well, which is it? Is it, do you know what I mean? It's that same thing of, now can I trust Frank? Because he said 75% and now it's 85%. Oh, I know you think you're doing them a favour. I'm not sure you are. Does that make sense? Thank you, Claire.
Are you making your offer without even seeing the property?
So they phone us and leave a message for us. I'm going to talk you through the process, but just to summarise, then we phone them back. That first conversation, the only objective of that first conversation is to work out if they're sophisticated or not. So yes, we make an offer, but the wording of that offer, and you will get the wording in a few minutes, is based on your valuation, Claire, of 100,000. So in the script, I'll say, so Claire, what do you think your property's worth? And you'll say, I think it's worth around 100, Frank. Okay, great. So based on your valuation, Claire, of 100,000, we'd be able to pay up to 75%, which would be £75,000. Does that kind of figure work for you? So I'm not making an offer, but I'm saying based on what you've told me it's worth, I'd be able to pay up to that. Now, if they say, oh, absolutely not, I knew it'd be a discount, but I was thinking 97 or 98, well, you're traditional. So now, it's been worthy of my time so far, 12 and a half minutes, but now I'm going to end it as I ended it with Darren earlier. Wish you all the best selling your property. Clearly, our business model's not for you right now, but it won't change. If you'd like to save my number in your phone, we're always here if you want to come back to us if something changes for you. So that is a successful outcome of a telephone fact find, because now I'm not going to spend any more time with you because you're not a sophisticated investor. You're not in need of a sophisticated solution. But if you say, oh, okay, yeah, I think that might work, I then go into the next stage, which I demonstrated with Darren a few minutes ago. Okay, great. So the next step is for us, the next step of the process is for me to pop out, meet yourself, value your property and make you a written offer. So we make the offer once we've seen the property, the binding offer, but on the telephone we do absolutely make an indicative, make an indication of what we would be able to pay to basically qualify them.
So if on the visit to the property, when you meet the vendor and you look and you think that roof is going to cave in and that's going to cost me 20 grand in 2 years' time because it's just not fit for purpose, but on the face of it, the owner is telling you that it's worth 100,000, then what do you do if you can already
So
judge?
I'm going to cover this in detail later, but I will answer it now. If you want, when I cover it later, feel free to ask more questions. The reason we say up to 75% is it's 75% of the property in a good lettable condition. That's the wording. Any works that need doing, we deduct from that price. So if it's £20,000 for a roof, we'll be paying 55 because it's 75 minus any works. So it's actually quite rare that we pay 75%. It'll be 75% minus some bits and bobs. Rob needs a mic, and then Rakesh, did you have your hand up? No, just Rob, thank you. Far right, Anita, thank you.
Very quick one. You said binding agreements.
Sorry, I missed that, Rob.
Binding agreement.
Binding?
Yes. How binding? I know that sounds daft, but...
Oh, well, in English law, our property market is a bit of a joke, really. So it's as binding as you saying to an estate agent, I'll pay you 100 grand for that house. Until you've exchanged contracts, you're not bound in the English real estate market, sorry, the English property market, spending too long with Americans, the English property market.
But we talk about binding because that gives them a little bit more incentive.
I've never used the word binding with a vendor. I think I just used that with Claire. So
Okay,
sorry
fine.
if I misled you.
No.
Thank you. Darren needs a mic, please.
Thank you. Do you have a quick list of the likely costs of things, or do we have to just kind of guess?
The problem with a list, great question. The problem with a list is a list in Yorkshire is different to a list in Nottingham, which is different to a list in Surrey. It's so different. So that's where you pick a goldmine area, and part of my process is helping you to pick a goldmine area, and it's different for everyone. It can be on your doorstep, it can be 4 hours away, it depends. Depends on your goals as to how often you need to go there. Some people go to their goldmine area once a month. Some people go there once a week, depends. But we pick a goldmine area based on your goals. So based on how many properties you want to buy, whether you want cash flow, whether you want capital growth, based on what you've got already. If you've got a load of one type of, people miss risk mitigation. Risk mitigation should be a primary focus of your strategy. So if you own, remember I said the 213 properties that I'm negotiating on in a minute, 30 million. They've got £20 million lending with one lender. They wouldn't have a problem if they had it with 20 lenders. Because what they could do is they could sell 20 properties, pay off all the lending to one lender, and have a load of cash to sort out the rest. But because one lender's got all the control, every time they sell a property, the lender takes 100% of the proceeds, which keeps them in default of their mortgage. They've got a 6-figure mortgage every month, over 100 grand in interest. They cannot service it. So people, if you want to jot this down, this is so important. It is later, but I'll give it to you now. Diversify your risk by the types of lenders you use, as in use different lenders. No one teaches you this. Your mortgage broker will pick the best mortgage on that day, and then if you buy another one 2 weeks later, they go, well, did you like that mortgage last week? Yeah, I did. They like you because they lent to you. Let's get another one. And if you go buy 5 in the next 3 months, they'll use the same mortgage. You know why? Because it's easier for them. But that's stupid, because if you buy 5 properties and you buy them all on, you decide 2-year fix are the best thing to do, 2-year fixed rates, and you buy them all with one lender, guess what? In 2 years' time, if mortgage rates have gone up, or if they've been bought out by some really draconian lender that doesn't want to lend, or they stick their SVR, standard variable rate, through the roof, now you're knackered. Now you might think, oh, 5's okay. It's not if it's your first 5, and it's not if you do 20 or 213. Now you're at the behest of that lender. And if you don't believe me, go speak to people that had their whole portfolios with Mortgage Express. So I was going to say Mortgage Works. Mortgage Express. Mortgage Express had a clause in their T's and C's, really small. Hands up if you've ever read every single clause of every single mortgage you've ever signed. Hand up. No one. Okay, it might have been 1 or 2 people. Most people don't, right? I don't. In there was a clause that no one had ever paid any attention to that said, if you sell a property and we think that your portfolio has dropped in value, see, people that have been in property for long enough know that this is possible. No one thought this was possible before it happened. A bit like 3% stamp duty, a bit like Section 24 mortgage rate relief. No one thinks about it. These are black swan events that we should be expecting. If you sell a property and we think your portfolio has gone down in value, we will keep the entire proceeds of that property to readjust your loan to value. So basically, you had 10 properties and you borrowed 75% on all of them. £1 million of property, £750,000. Interest rates went up. We're talking about credit crunch here, 2008, 2009, right? People loved Mortgage Works. They were so quick at Mortgage Express, sorry, so quick at lending. So people just did them. They did same-day refinance, really aggressive lender. They were aggressive at lending. They were aggressive at getting the money back in as well. Most draconian T's and C's the market had ever seen. Completely allowable, by the way. Buy-to-let lending is unregulated. you are deemed to be sophisticated investors because you are doing this for business. If this was homeowners, they never would have got away with it. But because it's buy-to-let, they can do whatever they like. So what happened, is this of interest, by the way? Yeah, it's a black swan event, right? It happened, but it... There we go. Sounds like Claire has been stung by this. There we go. There we go. And I've just bought 14 properties from a landlord who had them with... They are hard to work with. Hard people. Heartless. What they did was, 10 properties, let's say, and interest rates went up through the roof, and landlords were struggling to pay their mortgages. So a landlord was thinking, I'm falling into arrears. I'm going to, they might just be making ends meet, paying their mortgages. So what I'll do is I'll sell one. I've got 75 grand mortgage on it, and it's worth 100. I'll sell one. So they went to sell it, and they go through it, and they're like, right, I've got my cash flow. It's going to complete next month. I'll have 25 grand. That will see me through for another 6 months. And if I'm struggling, I'll sell another one. I'll ride out the wave. They come to nearing completion, and the solicitor, the vendor solicitor, the landlord solicitor, goes to the mortgage lender. What's the redemption figure? Now, they've got a statement that says you owe 75 grand on this property. So everyone's expecting 75 grand redemption figure. And Mortgage Works go back and go, we want 100 grand. And the landlord's like, what? No, 75. Oh no, if you look in your T's and C's, we think the other 9 have dropped in value. We think they're all worth 95 now. So that means that our mortgages are at £75,000. That's above 75%. So we need £4,000 on all of these to bring them back in line with 75. So actually we need the whole 100. So now he either sells it, and he can't even make his mortgage payment next month. Even though he gets 25 grand, he doesn't get it. So he's still in arrears, even though he's given them 25 grand. And it happened. People lost portfolios, even though they were selling properties, because of this clause in the T's and C's. Now, if you'd been sensible and bought, no disrespect, I don't know how many you had, don't know your situation. Different clause, right, they had many. Sorry, Darren, I'm going to finish, mate. So if you had 2 with that lender, Mortgage Express, 2 with Paragon, 2 with Birmingham Midshires, now you're fine. You don't sell those 2, you sell this one. Or Northern Rock, they got taken over and then there was a lot of pressure, etc. So, diversity of lenders, is it still relevant, your question? Cool. Do we have a microphone, please, for Darren?
Part of that whole fallout brought Northern Rock, Mortgage Express and others into one group for management purposes. So I had diversified mortgages with different mortgage lenders. But suddenly I woke up one and they were all with the same lender. So I had exactly that problem and had to negotiate my way through the fact that if you take all the money away, I'm actually in the same position as you're describing tomorrow as I am today. So why do I need to bother? Shall I just walk away and leave?
How many properties did you have?
In that particular group, there were about 10 of them.
Yeah. It's tough. But if you had diversified enough, you would have been okay. You were just unlucky if all your properties were within that group. That's tough. But
no, that wasn't all of my properties. It was just that it was a
so
big
you're okay
chunk
then.
of
Yeah.
it was a big chunk of what we had to do, and I had to negotiate out of it.
Cool. Well done. Well done for being diversified. It's exactly what I'm talking about. Did you want to share? Claire's. Thank you.
It's just good topic. So yeah, I started buying in 1997, and we probably bought 22, 23 across the first 10 or 15 years, going a bit crazy. But Mortgage Express were, and just to clarify as well, because my friend will be annoyed if not, she actually works for the Mortgage Works, which are part of Nationwide, which is still around and very good. But the Mortgage Express was people that you're referring to, Frank, isn't it? And they basically, you just ring them up and they would give you 80 grand over the phone.
Can you afford it? Yeah,
yeah.
great.
Can
there
you
you
afford it? Are you earning 100 grand? Yeah, self-cert. And they would send you a check, and of course it's very easy, especially when you're new into the market. And we were excited and buying everything left, right, and centre there. But what happened with us, and I'm not sure, it was a long time ago, and it was good news because one of my friends challenged them, and it was actually a clause to do with them, something to do with taking over the tenants' rent and things like that. But we had 7 with them at the time, and they came down to see me and were really super sweet, but I already knew what was going on. So we challenged back on them. And they did step away, and very shortly after, Topaz Cyberite, who you might be with, yeah, who 5 of mine are still with now, but won't be in 2 weeks' time, took over those mortgages. So I think it's a really valid point about this. It's very easy to get caught with a particular broker or a lender and never think, you think it's a great thing. Actually, it's really good to be mindful. And
Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder.
No problem. Thank you, Claire. So, Richard, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just reflecting on a question that was made earlier about should it be 5 years, 10 years or 15? Have you ever done a deal and gone back and gone, oh no, it's been a disaster because I've gone for 10 years rather than 15 or 5 years rather than 10?
I've certainly had deals where I've thought, wow, that was incredible. That's outperformed all my expectations. And I've had deals where I thought, yeah, if I could go back, I'd do it differently. But the key thing is you suck it up and you live with it. I treat everyone as if I've already bought the property, even if I haven't bought the property. If I've done an option, I don't walk away from an option. I have given the vendor my word. I don't care what the paper says, the bit of paper. If I've given my word, I stick by it. Yeah, it's really important to me.
And have you still made money out of those deals, but not as much? Or
Yeah,
have you made
I don't think I've ever lost money on a deal. I think the worst is in one of those 26 flips in 2009, we made $4,000. And I was like, oh my, I remember my business partner going, why are we doing this one? And I said, well, it's because we're flipping properties. And I know we're making $4,000, but let's never make $4,000 again. Like we were averaging 20 odd. And to make 4, it was like a disaster, but we still made $4,000. Yeah, I don't think I've ever lost money. I might have lost money in the short term, but never in the long term, because it's a tide that continually goes up. You buy a lemon, so long as you've bought it in a sophisticated manner, it'll make you money at some point, just maybe not as much and as quickly as you hoped. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for the question. So we're about to break, but I promise you a list of diversification. Different lenders, different terms, so 2-year fixed, 5-year fixed, variable, different geography of where you buy your properties. Now, I am risk averse. People say, no, have all your properties in one area. Yes, when you start, by all accounts, buy your first 20 in one area, but don't buy your first 100 in one area. What if they put a power station next to it? Or HS2 goes through it, or HS10 in 20 years' time? Diversify, even if it's a town a little way away, or maybe you start in a high cash flow area and then you go invest in a high capital growth area. If you have bought loads of flats, go buy some houses. If you have holiday lets, go buy some single lets. If you have single lets, go buy some student HMOs. If you have student HMOs, go buy. Be diverse. You will not make as much money, but you will be safer and wealthier long term as an average. If all of us are diversified, we will all be, as a group, wealthier in 30 years' time than if we are focused. Now, one of you might focus and go and do 200 student lets and make a shed load of money, and you'll be the shining star, right? Congratulations. Until that university closes, or has a scandal, or opens their own accommodation and does a deal with someone who builds 1,000 flats in that town. All the power stuff, like I could go on and on and on. And by the way, I sit with landlords. The £6.2 million deal that I'm doing with Broadcast, I sat with the landlords and I said, I like your model. I think they've got 17 houses. Let's say 6 rooms, 6 times 17, please, Aled. Oh, no, it's not you today, Shannon. 6 times 17, thanks, mate. 102 rooms, that sounds about right, something like that. 102 rooms. And they said, it's brilliant. They're all walking distance from one another. And they're all in the city centre, and they're all really close to the university. And I said, with all due respect, I know that's really good, has been really good for you so far, and you've clearly built a great portfolio. But I also have to look at the next 15 years. And I haven't done my due diligence on that university. And I don't know what industry is in that town. If that university closes, oh, it won't close. I appreciate it probably won't. But it could do, or it could shrink. Or the government could bring in some rules that make it hard for international students to come, etc., etc. There's 1,001 black swan events, and you have to do it delicately with landlords. But think about the black swan events, because if you're thinking about them, it's much easier to build a 100-property portfolio and avoiding as many black swans and diversifying now moving forwards than it is to buy 100 and then go, oops, how do I now make it safe? That's hard. Because moving properties, selling and buying, is really expensive. Stamp duty and legals, transactional costs of buying and selling, phenomenal. Think of all the taxes. Stamp duty, legals, capital gains tax, legals, estate agent fees. To buy and sell a 100 grand house could quite easily cost you 20 grand. Well, you don't want to do that if you can avoid it. You want to buy it once and hold it forever, ideally. So, you have 42 reasons that people are motivated. After the break, we are going to walk you through how to let them know that you exist. Give me a thumbs up if you're looking forward to that. Awesome. I make it 11:15.